Pakistan has expressed readiness to contribute troops to the International Stabilisation Force in Gaza, but will not participate in efforts to disarm Palestinian resistance groups. Speaking at a press conference at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dar emphasized that Pakistan's role would be limited to peacekeeping, not peace enforcement. Pakistan Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar stated, and I quote, "The matter of Hamas disarmament first came up during a meeting in Riyadh on the two-state solution. We're not ready for that. This is not our job. The ISF is part of a US-brokered Gaza peace plan, which was recently endorsed by the UN Security Council through a US-drafted resolution." I have my guest with me, Major General Sudhakarji, senior geopolitical and strategic defense expert, joining me. Major General Sudhakarji, how do you feel about this?
Vaishali, thank you for taking me on phone up for your show. It's very, very sensitive, very important, and very urgent for the world order to take note of what Pakistan Deputy Prime Minister and the Foreign Minister is saying. Because in a volatile region like Gaza, where the situation is so unpredictable, you cannot actually prefix a mandate and ignore the mandate which is desirable from the platform like United Nations Security Council. I have operated in such kind of missions during my service tenure. And in an instant case like the Hamas disarming of Hamas has to be taken as an intrinsic component of any kind of mandate coming the way of International Stabilisation Force. And to say that they will be only meant for peacekeeping, you cannot have country-specific mandate being discharged by the troops of a specific country. It is going to be under the umbrella of the United Nations. United Nations, it is not only Pakistan. There are many other countries. By rough count, I think I've been given to understand there are 11 countries who will be contributing troops, including Indonesia. So what is going to be applicable to Indonesia and others will also be applicable to Pakistan. So therefore, to preempt contributions or any bona fide kind of contribution towards a United Nations mission in the Gaza, and to say that Pakistan will not be doing peace enforcement, only peacekeeping will be done by the Pakistani troops, it is like you are fixing a match without knowing how the situation is going to unfold. This is one. Second part, Vaishali, having operated in such kind of situation, these are very unpredictable and volatile situations. On one hand, the Hamas may say they will surrender on their own, but will Hamas ever surrender the weapons without an assurance of two-state doctrine or the concept? And secondly, without any assurance of the sovereignty, territorial sovereignty, and also the safety? I don't think so. So therefore, this is the biggest, the conundrum which needs to be addressed at the highest level. And the global order would do well, Donald Trump would do well if they focus on the disarming of Hamas, which I feel is going to be the center of gravity of the entire peace deal of 20-point proposal which he has made and which they are going ahead with. Back to you, Vasha.
Major General Sudhakarji, of course, the UN Security Council has, of course, passed a US-drafted resolution for establishing a new transitional board of peace and authorizing an International Stabilisation Force to oversee governance. So considering these things have happened during your tenure, would you like to explain to our viewers how that works out?
Well, any such kind of UN missions operating anywhere in the world, firstly, there are stakeholders. There are conflicting stakeholders. In the instant case, you have the Israeli Defense Force and you have the Hamas who are operating towards one side. Also be mindful of the fact towards the northern border of Israel or south of Lebanon, you have Hezbollah also. Though they may have been weakened to a larger extent, but they are also building up the capability and the strength. So let's focus on to the Hamas. Hamas, at one point in time, there were about 38,000. Now we are given to understand, some reports indicate the strength of Hamas has come down to 8,000. But roughly, going by the average from the open source, it's around 14 to 18,000 after taking the reinforcement, the new entries into the Hamas. That is one. Secondly, the weapons and ammunition and the logistics they had, people say who are in know-how that more than 50% has been actually destroyed. I differ in this because the tunnels, the logistics, the weapons, ammunition, they are still intact. So therefore, the weakened status or the military capability of Hamas, which we presume, it may turn out to be a misnomer and it may not actually hold scrutiny as far as the combat capability is concerned. Third and most important point is, when you expect Hamas to actually surrender their arms and weapons, then they would expect that the International Stabilising Force or the peace body, which is actually overall responsible under Tony Blair, the Palestinians or the Hamas will definitely expect, because it is a political dispensation. They have a military component. They are, technically and legally speaking, they are ruling the Palestinians today. They are the elected representative. That is why the United Nations has not branded them or called them as terrorists. So therefore, to say that they're going to 100% they're going to surrender the weapons, it is, I think, we are thinking too much and too optimistic about the surrender, which may not take place. This is the central issue which they have to, and with regard to the question you are asking, how do you operate? When you are operating in a situation like this, you have certain standing operating procedures which are supposed to be complied with the relevant stakeholders. The IDF is not supposed to open fire or carry out any kind of breach of ceasefire which has been finalized or reached at. Similarly, Hamas is also not supposed to carry out any bombardment or any kind of atrocity of the people who are there in Gaza Strip or otherwise. So there are some sanctities to be followed. If the sanctities are being broken or breached, then the United Nations force comes into, and they try to resolve issues by peaceful means, by diplomacy and dialogue. If that doesn't work out, then perhaps the mandate of the United Nations may be peacekeeping, but it has to be revised, may have to be reviewed to actually have peace enforcement. Now, what is the difference between the two? While peacekeeping is a peaceful activity, by negotiations, by diplomacy or dialogue, the peace enforcement will demand that the United Nations forces are armed with weapons. They may have to do fighting negotiations. They may have to force their way through, put pressure on the attacking or the aggressor and bring them to the talking table and the negotiation process and get them to the level of the peace and harmony. Only then this peace agreement which has been formulated, 20 points, they have to narrow them down to this particular corridor of 20 points and take them along till the end state of peace and normalcy is restored.
And Major General Sudhakarji, my final question to you is that, what do you see happening ahead? I mean, in terms of the US peace plan and the Hamas situation, how do you see this progressing?
Vaishali, you have asked a very interesting question. The short answer, I don't want to be a pessimist, because in the given world order, geopolitical turn, one would expect that these mindless conflicts must come to an end. The global order is suffering. It is not only the global south, global north is also suffering. There are economic recessions taking place. In addition to the pandemic in the backdrop, you have had Russia-Ukraine war and the ongoing conflicts in the Middle East, and supply chain disruptions is taking place. There is a huge price rise in food, fertilizer and fuel. It is impacting the daily lives of common man, whether it is the leading economy or developed countries or the global south countries. So therefore, one would expect that this mindless conflict should come to an end. But unfortunately, talking realistically like a soldier, it's a pipe dream. In my assessment, this peace talk or the proposal which has been mooted, one I would hope and pray that it brings peace, but it is unlikely. Why it is unlikely? There are a lot of caveats, a lot of fault lines within the peace proposal itself. Netanyahu himself, who is one of the primary stakeholders, he does not want the concept of two-nation theory to be applied. And the Hamas, their bottom line requirement, why Hamas talk about Saudi Arabia? They are demanding, the Arabic countries, majority of them are demanding that they need to learn to coexist. Two-nation theory is the only practical solution which has already been validated, it has been debated in United Nations, and the final conclusion has come. Not now, we're back in 1948. So therefore, and thereafter, there have been number of agreements, and particularly the Oslo Agreement, which was signed in 1993. So to go back and say that the two-nation theory is not accepted as demanded by Netanyahu or Israelis, I don't think it is going to be a welcome development. They need to learn to mutually coexist. If two-nation theory is not working out, I would strongly recommend try out the concept of one-nation theory. Anything which is west of Jordan River till the coast of Mediterranean, anything existing, that piece of land, whether it is Israelis occupation or it is under the occupation of, let's say, the Palestinians or the Gazans, all of them, put them under one country, one flag, one constitution, let them learn how to be secular and coexist. If they have to kill each other, let them kill each other. But let them find a solution. In 21st century, we cannot afford to have such kind of discriminated identity and kill each other at gunpoint, and you can lead a peaceful and harmonious life. This is not what we are looking for in a liberal, rules-based international order in 21st century. So therefore, I would say that while I am optimistic, something should happen, one should be very, very practical in its outcome and the assessment that this may not take us to the logical conclusion of peace and normalcy. The world order should be prepared for it. Donald Trump and his team should be mindful of all the realities and identify which are the triggers, which are the fault lines going to impede the progress of 20-point peace proposal. Identify and try and go into the detail, carry out analysis, talk it out with the people and the stakeholders, engage with all kinds of, take a overall comprehensive kind of an approach, try and find out a permanent solution to this, and only then the peace and normalcy. That also cannot be guaranteed, because the Israelis, they don't want the Hamas to be there. Hamas, they don't want, Iran doesn't want Israel to be existing. So therefore, under these circumstances, some kind of a via media has to be worked out, and the most powerful country as on today is USA. USA will have a major say. They have to play a very pivotal role in bringing about...
Major General Sudhakar ji, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're running short of time, but I do appreciate your joining me on the broadcast. It's always a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you.